It's time to focus on seniors with Helping Seniors TV. The television show designed to make you aware of senior issues and needs, as well as to acquaint you with the resources available to help you age in place and with dignity. Now, here's your host, Joe Steckler.
I'm Joe Steckler, and welcome to Helping Seniors, the television arm of Helping Seniors of Brevard County. Our show is designed to provide you with information on how to develop your own aging and care plans. Our topic today is balance and fall prevention. And joining me is Chris Marriott, Rehab Director of Kindred Healthcare. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks for having me, Joe. Appreciate it.
Well, we've been doing shows since 2007.
It's been a while, yes.
That's a long time, 8 years, going on 9 years. And all those years, you were connected with Gentiva.
Correct.
Healthcare.
11 years with Gentiva.
11 years. But now Gentiva has become Kindred in kind.
Kindred at Home is our home care part of the whole Kindred family.
Is it Kindred at Home?
Yeah, that's the home care branch of Kindred Healthcare, correct.
Okay. But while the mothership has changed, the services are still the same.
Same people, same services, same programs, just a different name at the top of the check. Although we don't get checks these days anymore, do we?
So. Well, I think it's interesting because I've worked with so many of your people, your nurses, your therapists. I trust them. I've recommended your former Gentiva home health care people and now Kindred at home care people. I will continue to recommend them to people because I know that not only are they good at what you're doing, the personalities of the people involved show that the people you tend to hire are cut above the norm. By that I mean they're caring people, they're very professional, but they're very thorough and good in what they do.
And I wouldn't be here with them if it wasn't for the staff behind me, because I truly am impressed every week with what they do and how they do it and the results they get.
Okay. We've done so many different shows on canes, walkers, rollators, the skeletal system, everything. But let's go over again. Why do you, as a physical therapist and as a rehab director for Kindred at Home Care, why do you think it's so important for seniors to know more about fall prevention and, more importantly, what they can do themselves to prevent falls?
Well, the fall prevention is such a key part to so many people's lives, and it's not difficult to do. A lot of falls are triggered by people's fear and inactivity, and if we can put them on a program that keeps their inner ear, which should be their primary balance system, keeps that in check, they're going to avoid falling. A lot of that fall prevention activity is huge. So a lot of the teaching and a lot of keeping that inner ear the primary balancer. And that's the key is the education we provide to patients, and then giving them a home program that they can follow once we've left their door for the final time.
I've been plagued with back problems and balance problems for years. And I've been in a hospital for it. I've been in rehab for it. I've been in, and I've had your company taking care of me in my home after a hip replacement, after heart surgery, and then after, what was the last one? Forgot what it was.
You're testing out all continuums of the healthcare field, Joe. You shouldn't be doing that.
I'm a good guinea pig.
You are.
Yeah. But Chris, you reach a point where you have a combination of the pain, the balance problems, and age creeping in. Do you believe as a therapist that there comes a point when somebody can't be helped?
There's always something we can do to help them, whether it be a physical help or whether it be modifying their environment, getting them on the appropriate assistive device. We've talked about that for a big discussion. So I saw a patient there this morning, just before we came here today, who had a stroke a couple weeks ago. And on the surface, she looked pretty good and pretty mobile. But then when we did some higher level balance testing, we saw that there was some deficits that needed to be worked on, that she was still at risk for falls if we didn't dig a little deeper into them. So I think there's always something that we can do for some people if we test them enough and figure out whether there's any deficits. So it may not be always physical, it may be education, or maybe equipment or home modification.
Well, I feel comfortable in talking about this subject because it's something that I've been very closely associated with for 15 years, having gone through my back operations and knowing about the different therapies that have been tried, where they cut off or they deaden the nerves in the legs and the back and do all the epidurals and all this stuff. I'm not sure if any of it really works or not. For some people it does, for others it doesn't. And I think you have to reach a point where you have to figure out what can you do that's best for you. At times I'm on several different medications, and I've been diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And that causes a tremendous problem with my balance system because it causes my legs and shoulders and arms to ache terribly.
Right.
And so that restricts the fluidity of your movement, and it makes you feel awkward, and that affects your balance. And what can people do about something like that?
Well, there's things we can change with that. We're not going to address the actual problem of the pain that you've got with the fibromyalgia. But we're going to work on systems such as your visual tracking. We're going to work on your systems of your inner ear so that if you do have a loss of balance, that these other systems we can change are at their highest performance. So again, if you've got balance deficits related to the fibromyalgia, we're not going to reverse the fibromyalgia, but we're going to enhance your musculoskeletal system, your ability to recover from a loss of balance will be better, etc.
Okay. That's the point, that the continual therapy, whether it be in a rehab center or at home, and so many people do not understand the value of in-home therapy. And I'd like for you to help our viewers understand what you can do in the home is almost the same as what you can do.
Well, a lot of the therapy that's the most beneficial does not involve using the large big machines or equipment that's found in clinics. A lot of it is just your basic balance exercises. Assessing how they get around in their home is exceptionally important. The fact that they may be able to get around in their environment or in a well-lit doctor's office or a therapy clinic is many times irrelevant to how they're managing back at home. We look at the lighting systems, we look at grab bars, we look at inclines, we look at how we can modify that home. That's the key. If we can keep people as independent as possible in their home and getting around their outside of their house and in and out of their car, that's 95% of their life. So that's what we really focus on.
Have you seen a new gadget that you can put in your door lock and it helps a person get out of the car? Have you seen it advertised on television?
I've not.
My wife bought me one.
Okay.
And I put it in the door. And the problem with it is it's a little higher. And the problem is when I had my stroke, the stroke affected my left side more than it did my right side. So getting out of the car, it's easier for me to put my right hand on the door, on the jamb.
Right.
And so I push myself up getting out of the car. That's the trick. And when you get older and you're worrying about balance and falls, you have to sort of learn for yourself or teach yourself what are the little gimmicks you can do
Absolutely.
to make yourself safer.
Every little bit of a task of what we as younger people take for granted needs to be assessed and modified and evaluated at the least energy expenditure at the safest way possible, whether it be car transfers or shower transfers or getting in and out of the bed safely or on and off of chairs. All those little tasks become more difficult to do, put people at higher risk for falls. So that's where the value of home care is probably understated. We will assess all that ability and come up with strategies or techniques or different equipment to make those as easy as possible.
One of the things that in my discussions in previous shows with you, I don't think most viewers understand the importance of their understanding what their skeletal system can do, and for instance, the inner ear problems. And perhaps you could help explain a little bit more about some of the simple things. Now, I like to think about the phone call you got from Las Vegas one time where you helped somebody with the inner ear problem. Perhaps you could talk about that a little bit.
I got another one the other day, a few weeks back as well. But the inner ear is a key balance system, and a lot of people see the ear and they think hearing. They don't realize that its most important function is balance, that inside that ear is a system of canals which will play 2/3 of the role of balance for the human body. And in these canals, there's this fluid that turns around in them with every movement of your head to one side or to the other or forward and backward. That's picked up by the inner ear. And that, through your computer, your brain, helps detect where you are in space and keeps you balanced. It needs a system of checks and balances and stimulation in order to keep it finely tuned. As we become more sedentary or have a fear factor put in, that system can be less stimulated and kind of goes to sleep.
I know that when you take away your visual, your ability to see, when you shut your eyes and you try to stand on foam or something, it's extremely difficult.
Yes.
You open your eyes, it's much easier.
We as a society and as we age, we become, unbeknownst to ourselves, very dependent on our vision for our balance. We use our vision a lot, which picks up the horizontals and verticals, and that's how we balance ourselves. However, in many people, we have problems with our vision as we get older, with macular degeneration and glaucoma and cataracts, and that one system that you've relied on into your 60s and 70s starts failing you more and more in the 80s. Right. And that's when we see a bit of a catastrophic spike in falls, because that's the system they've relied on. It's failing them. Their inner ear has already gone to sleep over those last number of years. And that's where we, as therapists, come in and play a big role in rehabilitating the system that we can, which is the inner ear.
Yeah. Is Kindred at Home still basically a Medicare system?
It is a Medicare certified agency. We do accept other insurances as well. TRICARE, VA, United Healthcare, but we are care that's being provided in the patient's home.
Okay, the reason I ask that is because, let's face it, the problem that you and I are discussing are more prone to apply to people like me.
Absolutely.
The older you get, the more problems you have with fluidity of motion, with strength. I notice that my strength is not what it used to be. And I blame myself for that, because once I had my stroke 2 years ago, I didn't push myself as hard as I should have to get back to the gym. And for the first 80 years of my life, I worked out in the gym once I got 16, 17 years old. I never missed my gym workouts. And when I was on a submarine overseas, I took weights with me. And a couple of people used to complain because they used to work off my weights in the forward battery. But I had to be very careful when we were submerged. I didn't want to drop the weights on the deck of the submarine, because it transmitted a noise through the hull. And the sonarman didn't like that. So I was careful I didn't drop my weights. But I think it's important in balance and fall prevention that each individual recognize the importance of the strength factor. And I would like for you to talk to our viewers a little bit about how home therapy or rehab therapy can help improve the strength factor, which then tends to enable you to do things for yourself and motion. Use grab bars, use canes, use rollators. It's not just something you pick up and do without thinking.
Right.
Okay.
No, we do a lot of the strengthening. People have difficulty getting in and out of chairs, getting properly in and out of cars, walking longer distances. So we do a lot of strengthening to strengthen their core muscles. To have a good core set of muscles is
sitting up straight,
extremely important.
I forget to do.
For posture. It's extremely important for what we call righting reactions, which is a reaction if you lose your balance to bring yourself back into a balanced state. You've got to have a proper core muscle group. So we do a lot of activities which make a lot of the responses to a loss of balance pretty innate, pretty kind of like a reaction to it, rather than having to think as you're falling down to move yourself back up. So we do a lot of strengthening of the core muscles that will help with that for sure.
Yeah. Too often we forget, I think, that when you talk about your core muscle system, most of us think that bulging biceps, wide pecs, that's bodybuilding, and that's the way you have to go. But we tend to ignore the importance of just the plain muscle system that extends through our torso and down into our nerves, our hips, because of all the nerve systems that are in the back, the neck. In my recent seizure therapy, I had the therapist talk about the 2, 4, and 6-inch nerves back in the back of the neck and how they help support the head and back to the neck. And they gave me some exercises that were simply pushing on the chin, pushing my head back,
chin
and
tucks,
rotating my head back.
Yeah.
Those are simple things. Those are things we can do at home.
As important as strengthening, stretching is right there with it. You know, we probably underutilize or underrealize the value of stretching as we get older. Stretching not only stretches the muscles and tendons, but it stretches the nerves, it stretches the blood vessels. So the stretching components to an exercise program are as important as a strengthening component in my opinion.
Okay, I'm going to be a therapist just for a second.
All right.
You viewers, if you don't believe what Chris and I are talking about how fluid or how limber your muscles still are, lay down on the floor and take a belt and loop the belt and hold the belt and put it over your instep and pull your leg up and try to straighten your leg out and see how tight your muscles in the back of the leg are. That will convince you that you're not as limber as you should be. I know all the exercises to do. No, I don't know them all, but I know many exercises to do to help me. My wife was really, really smart in getting a table. I don't have to lay down on the floor. I can lay down on a table in our bedroom. But my big problem is doing it. Forcing myself to do something I know is probably the best therapy in the world for me, the best thing to help me, so that if I do something like you and I are talking about, it will tend to reduce neck and headaches.
Right. We just have to prioritize that and see the value in it. And that's a lot of people aren't aware of the value that strengthening and stretching and 5 minutes of activity here and 5 minutes there is for the body. And that's where different societies probably have us beat. In Japan, they know the value of yoga and stretching and all the balance exercises. And I hesitate to think that their fall rate is significantly lower than the ones here in the States, because we as a society don't value that. So I think there's got to be a whole continuum change in the society, that we value certain things that are going to be very beneficial in the future.
Do you still use the Safe Strides program?
Absolutely.
You still call it the Safe Strides?
Still call it the Safe Strides program. The lady I saw this morning, we will be implementing the program with her for higher level balance. Absolutely.
Can you explain to our viewing audience exactly what the Safe Stride program is and how they can do it themselves to help themselves?
Safe Strides is a program that was developed out of necessity. As therapists, we weren't addressing the problem and causes of falls. We were strengthening people only. We were walking or gait training them only. And we weren't looking at what was the primary cause of the fall, which was a deficit in the balance system of the inner ear. So the Safe Strides focuses primarily around challenging balance systems and getting patients to be balanced using the inner ear and less reliant off their visual system. So it's a system of balance which is not taxing. Many times it can be a little scary because we put people on the limits of losing their balance, and that in turn helps train the body to balance itself.
That's what the Safe Stride program is?
Yep, it's centered around the inner ear. We do strengthening, we do stretching, we do gait training or ambulation. We even do oculomotor or eye tracking. Our eyes move with a set of tiny muscles, and we assess that to see if our visual system is intact. Okay. When I turn my head one way, does the eyes lock onto the environment around them? Many people that we test, their eye movement is very jagged, and that's what their environment is like. And they have a difficult time stabilizing their environment, and that results in a poor balance system as well.
I'm reading a book now that talks about a person's in the ICU and they're doing an eye test to see if the eyes follow. It's quite similar to what you're talking about.
I tested that patient this morning, and that was one of the things, very subtle, but she could not track properly with her vision. And what that tells me as a therapist is that she's having difficulty stabilizing her environment, and that translates into an unsteady gait pattern. So we can work with that.
Well, another big advantage of the home therapy program using the same therapist is that therapist sees the changes in that person in a home environment and can better address some of the corrective things that need to be incorporated.
Right. We try to use the same therapist throughout the whole episode of care so they can see those changes, so that they don't have to relearn the patient every single time, and then make adjustments as they improve. They add on more challenging activities or exercises. So it's very important.
Okay. No show on balance and fall prevention would even begin to be complete if we just didn't take a few minutes and talk about what we can do ourselves to prevent falls. And here I'm talking about developing the mindset that we need and do and can and will use a cane or some type of walking device to make us more ambulatory, but also make us safe so that we don't fall.
Right.
And I want to tell a little bit about the difference between the 4-wheel rollator and the 3-wheeler.
All right.
So let's go with the canes.
All right. Canes are, of course, the least restrictive assistive device. They're used for people who have a significant walking speed, so they're walking pretty quickly. They are there as an extra base of support. They extend your base of support from 2-pronged feet up to a 3-triangle base. It gives you a little bit of extra stability. Many times they're there in case there's a loss of balance. They are there to provide a little bit of support. Past that, people often will leave them around if they're not using them that much, but it's a good just in case.
Is there a reason why it's more difficult to get a woman to use a cane than it is a man?
Absolutely. There's probably a huge stigma attached. In olden days, canes and top hats were very well accepted, and the men used those. And my mom's a perfect example. She refuses to use any assistive device. She needs one, and it's all because she does not want to be seen with one. So trying to convince people that this is a rehab tool, and that's the wording I use for many patients who are a little bit hesitant to using an assistive device such as a cane or a walker. This is a tool. This is a tool to getting you better. This is a tool to allow you to walk easier. And it may not be something that you're going to need full time, but let's at least now work with it so that we can get some good therapy with you.
Well, when I go on Sunday morning, I have 2 rollators. I keep one in the house. I keep one in the back of my car. And sometimes I go to church on a Sunday morning. It depends on how I feel, whether I think I would be safe using just my cane, or would it be smarter to haul a rollator out of the back end of the car and set it down?
Absolutely.
And so I find I opt to be more on the safe side. And I think about the roller as opposed to a cart in the store. When you get the cart in the store, you bend over to relieve the pressure in your back, and you wheel through the store like an old person. Me. However, if you use the rollator makes you stand up straighter.
I'd love to see more and more people using those. They have 3 benefits to them. One of them is, of course, balance. The second one is increasing the distance you can walk, so endurance. It takes less energy to walk using a roller. And then the third one is it can relieve some of the pressure or pain off your back, or your hips or knees. So there's 3 benefits to using those walkers.
I like the second benefit again. Say the second benefit.
The 3 benefits of using a walker are increasing your endurance or distance you can walk. So
That's good. I
patients with
understand that.
heart failure or COPD, I've seen patients who could walk 100 feet with using a cane to 300 feet using a walker. The body's energy expenditure is so much less because of that walker.
Rollator.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And then weight bearing, of course, takes some of the weight off of your joints, increases your posture, and then balance. So you have 3 benefits of a walker.
Okay. What comment would you offer about whether or not it's safer to use the 3-wheeler or the 4-wheeler rollator?
The 3-wheeler should only be used in an extremely small portion of the population. And I've only ever recommended it for people who live in very small confined spaces or environments where they need to have that ability to get into tight areas. There's not much more benefit other than that from that walker. I really hesitate to recommend them. It's much like how they stopped selling 3-wheel ATVs out there. They easily tip over. They don't have as much support. A 4-wheel walker offers a seat option as well that the 3-wheeler doesn't. So 3-wheelers.
I was watching a woman walk into church a couple of weeks ago, and she had the 3-wheeler. And I cautioned her. I said, "Are you realize?" I said, "If you shift your weight too much, you could tip that." And she said, "I never thought about that, Joe."
Yeah.
And this is another thing. When people go and they get these devices, they need to understand the perils of falling with anything we use that we're not
It needs to
accustomed
be recommended and prescribed by a therapist if you want the right one to match the person's ability.
Okay, you got 26 seconds to say anything you want to say.
Well, we just need to get people out there to know that the therapy can benefit people. Don't be afraid of receiving help. We are there to get you as independent as possible and to live as long as you can in your own home.
Yeah. And lastly, I would make to you viewers, using a cane can save your life because a fall is one of the greatest things that takes the life of a senior.
Absolutely.
Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed our today's episode of Helping Seniors. I'm Joe Steckler. Thank you for joining our program today. I'd like to remind you that our senior information line is available to you at 321-473-7770. There you can get help and direction that could be helpful for your specific situation or circumstances. The work of helping seniors is very important, but we can't do it alone. That is why our sponsors here in Brevard County are so important. I'd like to thank our many area sponsors, businesses, and medical providers who support the mission of helping seniors that help us carry the cost of our media efforts. If you'd like to join us either as a business partner or simply donate as an individual, we would welcome your call at 321-473-7770. You are always welcome to visit our website at www.helpingseniorsofbrevard.org. Thanks so much for your help. It does make a difference.